All right, let's dive into something truly fascinating today. Drag Theopoetics. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but stick with me. We're going to unpack how the incredible art of drag can actually reveal some profound truths about ourselves, our reality, and maybe even the divine itself. This is all based on the amazing work of Max Yeshaye Brumberg-Kraus.
So our journey starts with this really provocative quote from the spiritual teacher Ram Dass. Treat everyone you meet like God in drag. It's one of those lines that just stops you in your tracks, right? It feels so beautiful and important, but what does it really mean?
Is this just a lovely, poetic way of saying, be nice to people, or is there something much, much deeper going on here? That's what we're going to get into. We're going to unpack this single, powerful idea and see where it takes us. And it turns out Ram Dass wasn't some lone voice in the wilderness with this idea. The concept of the divine being in drag, well, it pops up in all sorts of different places, across different cultures, hinting that there's some kind of universal truth hiding in there. And of course, probably the most famous version comes from the queen of drag herself, RuPaul, who puts it a little differently. We are all God in drag. See, this takes it from a nice idea and drops it right into the world of performance. For RuPaul, this isn't just a theory, it's something you do. It's a practice that reveals that you, yes you, are an extension of the very power that created the entire universe. Now, to really wrap our heads around this, we need to step outside of our usual boxes. You know, traditional theology can be pretty rigid, very stuck in logic and old doctrines. So let's explore a different way of thinking, one that really embraces art, creativity, and performance. And that approach has a name, Theopoetics. It's all about finding and understanding the divine, not through some fixed set of rules, but through the act of creation itself, through art, through poetry, through our own lived-in, embodied experiences. It's about finding God in the making. This slide just lays it out so clearly. Theopoetics is a shift away from logos, that's the world of logic, of words, of fixed, dusty doctrines, and a move toward poesis, that's the world of making, of creativity, of embodied, lived experience. It's the difference between just talking about the divine and actually participating in its creative energy. Okay, so if we can understand the divine through performance and creativity, what does that say about our own identities? This is where things start to get really personal. And here's the absolute key distinction we have to make: the difference between a performed self and a presumed self. The presumed self is who you think you just are, naturally. You know, it's fixed, it's static. But the performed self, that's a self you are consciously, creatively bringing to life, moment by moment. It's kind of like the different roles you play at work versus with your best friends. And you can really see the difference here. The presumed self is just there. It's totally unaware that it's been constructed, and it often just wants to be in charge, to dominate. But the performed self? It's in on the secret. It's a conscious process. It knows it's a construction, and it's trying to understand the world, not control it. This is why drag is the absolute perfect lens for all of this. Like Philip Core said, drag is a lie which tells the truth. By being so openly and wonderfully artificial, it pulls back the curtain. It shows us that all of our identities are constructed, that we are all, in our own way, in drag every single day. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds very modern, very postmodern, right? But get this. The idea of divinity performing itself into being, putting on different costumes, it has roots that go way, way back into ancient mystical traditions. So, in the Jewish mystical tradition of Kabbalah, the creation story is basically cosmic drag. It starts with God as this infinite, formless light. Then, to create anything, God has to pull back to make some empty space. And then, the divine light pours into that space and puts on the drag of 10 distinct, gendered personalities. And that performance is what becomes our world. Let's hop over to ancient Greece. You see a similar idea in the famous tragedy, the Bacchae. The god Dionysus, who is all about fluidity and blurring boundaries, shows up in the city of Thebes, disguised as a regular mortal guy. He's literally a god in human drag, and he's there to shake things up. And he goes up against this super rigid, by-the-book ruler, King Pentheus, who is the ultimate presumed self. And how does Dionysus break him? He tricks Pentheus into dressing in drag himself, and this one act completely shatters the king's rigid identity and his entire view of the world. It shows us that drag has always been seen as this incredibly powerful, even dangerous, world-altering tool. Okay, so we've covered the what and the why, but let's get into the how. How does drag actually do this? What are the specific techniques performers use to reveal these hidden truths about who we are? Well, a key part of it is something called extra daily techniques. Now, that sounds academic, but the idea is simple. Think about all the little things you do every day without thinking. The way you walk, the way you sit, the way you use your hands. A drag performer takes those unconscious movements and makes them conscious, deliberate, and often exaggerated. And by doing that, they make all the hidden work we do to perform our gender suddenly brilliantly visible. And this isn't just about drag queens. Drag kings use this in incredible ways to deconstruct masculinity. For instance, they might use understatement, performing a kind of shyness or reluctance, to expose how traditional masculinity often tries to pretend it isn't a performance at all. Or they'll use hyperbole, blowing up macho stereotypes to show how fragile and constructed they really are. Or they'll use layering, letting you see multiple gender identities at once, proving that those boundaries we think are so solid are actually pretty darn permeable. So, let's bring this all home. We have journeyed from theology to ancient myths, all the way to modern performance theory. What's the big ultimate takeaway from all of this? Here it is. Drag isn't just about performing gender. It's a masterclass that teaches us that all identity, your job, your sense of self, your personality, it's not some static thing that you are. It's a dynamic, creative process that you constantly do. It's all a performance. Which brings us right back full circle to RuPaul's most iconic statement, "You're born naked and the rest is drag." Everything else we put on, our names, our clothes, our jobs, our beliefs, it's all a kind of drag that we've constructed to navigate the world. And that leaves us with one final, and I think really powerful question. If ourselves and our reality are really just one big, continuous creative performance, well then what new roles can we write for ourselves? What new, better, more liberated worlds can we start performing into existence right now?